Good morning. I'm Katie Dutcher from Flourish and Bloom and Monterey Bay Meditation Studio. And I've been doing over the past couple weeks just a little focus in on some small things that make a difference. And this is kind of like around the theme of everyday mindfulness. So, yes, mindfulness or meditation is one way to practice mindfulness. And there are all these ways that we can thread more awareness, more presence into just everyday life. And so the first one was about noticing what's good, noticing the wonderful things that are arising all around us. And the second one last week was about practice being anything. Anything can be practice. And for today, I wanted to talk just a little bit about, um, there's many words for it, but following your impulses or your inclinations. You could call it your intuition. So I I'm assuming this happens to many of us that throughout a day, you have your track that you're on, what one thing coming after another, and then every once in a while there are these little flashes, little thoughts, or feelings, and I'm not talking about just the random ones, but the ones that seem like they have some kind of a real push behind them, but they're small. So these small inclinations or impulses that that usually are asking me to do something a little differently than I might normally do things, or incorporate something that isn't usually here. So these impulses, are often really wonderful, and they, if followed, would take us into a new path. They would set something new in motion, perhaps. And so, what I'm suggesting, and this is a practice that I've been working with for a little while now, is when when something like that arises, not letting it just slip away into the next thought, but actually acknowledging the impulse, and then seeing if I can act on it. Usually, right there in that moment, because delay, it just leaves again. But if I can act on it right there in that moment, amid all the noise of the day, and let that impulse be heard and acknowledged, then perhaps something new can happen. So when I say that this is often directing us to be in the world differently than we are, I'll give some examples. So for me, often my default mode is to be really busy, 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 productive, and always kind of doing something. And so often that little voice to heed is the one saying, maybe just rest now. Maybe you should lay your head down a little bit. And so listening to that is a practice. And every time I listen to that, that voice can grow a little bit stronger the next time. Another thing that is a default sometimes for me is to just be very kind of involved in my own work, and that's wonderful. And my work, a lot of my work involves connecting with other people, but sometimes what that means to be very wrapped up in just what's right here around me is that I'm not connecting as much as I would like to with other people that are not living right here. And so sometimes that is what the impulse is directing me toward doing, is connecting with somebody that I might not otherwise connect to. Sometimes it's I've just had a nice experience, and I think about it the next day and I think that was really wonderful. I should tell that person how much I appreciate it. And it's those kind of impulses that where a connection is sparked, and we don't know, it could just be a nice little thing to thank that person. It could also make their day, or reinforce something that needs to be reinforced for them. So we don't actually know the chain of events that will follow after honoring this little impulse. I can give another fun example. Um, a few months ago, I I was thinking about my cousin. We had had a trip, a family trip, and I enjoyed hanging out with my cousin. And I was talking to my husband a month or so later about how we had fun and we missed him and we wish we could see him more often. And that impulse was there to say, hey, reach out. And so I did. And I don't usually text this person, but I texted and I said, hey, we miss you. We would love to see you. We wish you lived around here. And the next thing you know, that kept leading between other texts and communication. And now, actually, today, this evening, he's coming to visit. And he's never visited us before. And we're really excited. I don't I live here in California, and most of my family lives on the East Coast or farther away than that. And so it is a really special thing to have a family member, a cousin who will be here, um, and so all this can be traced back to following this impulse of saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about you. I miss you." Um, So these are the impulses that I'm talking about listening to, the ones that have us be nourished or nourish other people in a way that um, in our busy life we don't necessarily do. So what this takes is pausing. It's sometimes it's going a little bit slow to give things the opportunity to arise. It's paying attention, and especially paying attention to repetition. Sometimes a thought will come in, and we let it go. We're busy with something else, and then it comes back again. And so, paying attention, and especially to what repeats itself, it just says something that needs to be given its time to shine. Um, I really think that this is how the voice of intuition speaks, that it's not as loud as a lot of the other kind of voices and noise going on for us. But the more we kind of tune into this small voice or this small inclination, the stronger it can be. So, this is just a short snippet, and I hope it's worth something for you, that you might try out this practice. Just start listening in and let me know how that goes for you. Take good care. I'll see you next week.